Okay, this might sound kind of weird, but I want to do a little bit of a rant on blackface. So recently I've noticed, and this happens literally every year, some celebrity gets in trouble for it being unearthed at some point in their career. They did blackface. This ranges from pretty much any comedian, Sarah Silverman, Tina Fey. Well, she didn't do blackface, but she allowed it to be on 30 Rock, which, if you would think about it, is more of an ensemble because they have a whole writing team who wrote the jokes, approved the jokes. No one saw it as problematic and still allowed it to go on the air, but it still happened, right? So you have Tina Fey, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Howard Stern, and even Drake, if you really want to break it down, if you want to go back to the fight he had with Pusha T. So every few years there is a big fight against the idea that blackface should never, ever, ever happen again, because in its original inception it was made in minstrel shows to make fun of enslaved people. They were literally just taking what they saw us as and laughing at us on a daily basis and putting it on TV and using us as comedy, right? And it was really used to mock slaves, which is super effed up. And if you go back and look at any of the archive footage of any kind of blackface, it is hard to watch, especially as a black person. It makes me sick to my stomach. They made us look like idiots and buffoons and fools and barely even human. And that is the part that I really struggle with, is that if you look at those images, that's not what you see from a Jimmy Kimmel or what you see from a Jimmy Fallon. Or even in the case of 30 Rock, that's not what they were doing. They weren't taking black people and treating them as subhuman. They were taking individuals and mocking those individuals. Say, so Chris Rock, like with Jimmy Fallon. He's doing a parody of Chris Rock. And not one to go, look at all these gosh darn black fools. It was, look at this Chris Rock caricature. And with Jimmy Kimmel, similar thing when he played Karl Malone, or he played Oprah. He didn't even play a good Oprah. You know what I mean? He didn't even play a good Oprah. It was just him as a black woman because he needed to be Oprah and just told a bunch of fat jokes, basically. And I don't see those as being offensive, which is why I think when you look at the context of what's going on, I have a hard time of being really mad at those people. I even look at the Sarah Silverman situation, and that one's problematic because she was definitely donning blackface in a mocking sense. But again, not to make fun of black people, but to make fun of the situation. And I think that we've gotten to a point where we've forgotten to separate actual problems from problematic. Yes, thank you, alarm for work, to let me know to go do my job instead of making internet videos. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there is a situation where there is a person mocking a person, and there's a person who is mocking an entire race. If you go back in the analogs of even movies, there's a movie that came out called Bamboozled by Spike Lee. It was hard to watch when I was a kid, and I recently went back to explore it, and I actually find it to be extremely poignant to now, because it takes black actors and have them do blackface. And it tells a very, I won't spoil it for you, if I tell you anything about it, it kind of spoils it. But it takes the whole situation and puts it on like a satirical swivel, and also a painful swivel. And it's hard to watch, but I think it's a movie that everyone should see if you're struggling with how to feel about people giving others passes, quote unquote, for blackface. Now, I mentioned earlier Howard Stern, which I've done a podcast on, the Cancel Culture Podcast, go check it out. But Howard Stern did it to mock something Ted Danson did, which is deplorable, but he did it in a fashion that is also harmful and in line with the minstrel shows. But that wasn't his intent. But at the same time, people say this often, the road to hell is paved with good intent. And so while I can't defend what he did there, because it's hurtful to ever see anyone bring back that old minstrel show form of blackface, I think there's a reason that it exists, because our history is rife with hate and pain. And our history is rife with people who often want to make fun of that hate and pain, because comedy is often pain and looking, to find a light in dark places. And so I often just look in the mirror and see myself going, have I ever made a joke that was like inappropriate towards women? Have I ever made a joke that's inappropriate towards other black people? Have I made jokes that are inappropriate towards white people? The answer is yes. because, again, I'm trying to make light of my pain and in light of a struggle. And in light of all that, it doesn't excuse treating others as subhuman. And before I get to the larger point of this whole video, please arrest the men that killed Breonna Taylor. Just throwing it out there, because what the F? If you don't know about that story, I'll put a link in the description down below. Go read about it. It is terrifyingly sad. But it still stays in line with the idea that some people don't view us, black people like me, or and some of you, as worthy of living and worthy of dignity. And that's what those minstrel show Blackface pieces did. There's a reason why people look at what Robert Downey Jr. did in Tropic Thunder and they don't feel the same kind of way they feel about the Jimmy Kimmel or the Howard Stern or the Sarah Silverman or the 30 Rock situation. Because throughout the movie, there was a black character who repeatedly called out that it was messed up, and repeatedly called out that it was a problem, and repeatedly saw the issue and was a kind of a force for us, right? And while Robert Downey Jr. did a great job in that role, his role was clearly and obviously satirical, to the point where that was part of the plot. People often ask, does he get a pass? He doesn't get a pass, but he literally did his job. And I think that his job in that movie was to be funny, but also to make a point. And when I look at what others have done, it was in the name of comedy. It was the name of being funny. It was the name of writing something to entertain people. But that's the same thing the minstrel shows are trying to do too. Except the minstrel shows are made to only entertain white people and only entertain people that think it's funny to make fun of slaves. And if you look back at old cartoons like Sambo, and you dig into all this, the more and more you try, and it makes you sad. The question I leave myself with: is there a difference between blackface and minstrel shows, where they were mocking slaves, and blackface in comedy shows where they're making fun of an individual, where they are playing a black person, but a single black person, not trying to represent the whole race, but a single black person? There are times where you look back and you see actors who try to portray Sammy Davis Jr. You know, I think that at that point in history it was a little bit too soon, but was it appropriate? I want you to determine that for yourself, and I want us to have a dialogue in the comments of this video. Because I look at all this and I think that the easy thing to do is to be like the angry black man and go, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. But I also understand that there is context for certain things. And not to give comedy a pass on its own, but it was a different time, and comedy itself was different inherently. There's currently a thing going on where I'm seeing on Twitter that there's some white people trying to justify systemic racism because there's an actress who decided on, I don't know her name, I'm not gonna lie to you about it. There's an actress who was on Big Mouth, the Netflix animated series, which I don't watch, who was portraying a black character. And I had no idea, but because she did a good job, she's a great actress. I had no idea that she was white. But she decided that she's not going to play the role anymore and said that animated black characters should be played by black people. And immediately you see people go, well, does that mean that Darth Vader shouldn't have been played by James Earl Jones? Does that mean that Bart Simpson should be played by an older woman and should be played by a 10-year-old boy? No, because that's not the point. That's not the point at all. The actress is trying to kind of step in line with the idea that all this racial stuff is going on right now, and she realizes that maybe by playing a black character, she could be put in league with people who do blackface, in a sense, because she's, of course, going to use an exaggerated or a different kind of voice for a black character than she would another character, because that's just how it goes. I think that, anymore that, Samurai Jack isn't played by an Asian man because Phil Lamar's black. Voice acting, as long as it's not offensive, should be treated with different gloves, in my opinion. I think what she's doing is admirable, and I understand what she's trying to do. But I do have to say that if you're being real about it, you just hire the best actress for the job, and not the person that necessarily fits the color. But then again, you have to think about it too, like with systemic racism, there's not a lot of black actors to get roles. So if you have a black character, you should probably hire a black actress who is good. And there is definitely going to be someone who's going to replace, this actress who decided to drop the role, and she'll be good. She'll be a quality black actress. Like, you can't give everything to Cree Summers. You know what I mean? Like, Cree Summers gets everything. You don't know Cree Summers? She literally voices almost every black character you know. Literally, like Susie from Rugrats, Max from Batman Beyond. Just go look up Cree Summers, you'll see what I mean. But she voices so much that I'm not saying that she shouldn't get another role, but I am saying that there are other talented black actresses that need work. And that's the reason why she's stepping down. You know what I mean? That's the reason why she's saying that these roles should go to black people, because it's already hard to get like work in Hollywood. So why take away one more paycheck from one more black person that's already struggling? That is the idea, you know? Trust me, Darth Vader being white, oh my God, not a big deal. You know why? Because literally there are a bajillion black actors that would have taken that role and done it justice. In fact, I believe, and don't quote me on this, that may have been what had happened, but they didn't like the original actor's voice. So they had James Earl Jones step in because he was talented. That's just how the cookie crumbles, man. So ultimately what I'm saying here is blackface is bad, but they're, at least in, like, let's say the 90s, 2007 even, there was a point where people knew the difference between blackface and being a character actor. And what I'm saying right now, especially right now, we need to be more understanding and sensitive to the plight of the black people, because there is a problem going on here in the world. There is a problem going on that has been here for years. Like, 200 plus years. And I'm happy to see that people are taking a stand and making moves to try to get us all on equal footing. I really am. And all I can really ask is that we try as a people to understand the plight and not get hung up on contextual details. Try to understand things from a human perspective. Like, how would you feel? How would it affect you? Again, go watch Bamboozled. I highly implore that. Go look up some clips, even here on YouTube, from after this video. Go look up Bamboozled. Go look up some clips, and I'm telling you. In fact, you know what? I'll put some links in the description down below for you. Make it easy. You'll feel different once you see and understand what it's like to be treated that way, to be portrayed that way. And maybe then you'll get it. Blackface, especially one that's meant to break down and hurt people, is wrong. Dressing up like a black character reminds us of that. And that's why it's wrong. It harkens back to it. The act itself, I don't think that Jimmy Kimmel is a bad person. I don't think that Jimmy Fallon is a bad person. I just think that they didn't understand at the moment, and their staff didn't understand at the moment, and the writers didn't understand at the moment, that it harkens back to the painful past that still affects us today. And that's the issue. If you want to hear more about my opinions on this stuff, I have a podcast recently where I discuss the counseling of Aunt Jemima, the pancakes, the pancakes, with my parents. I think it's pretty powerful. It's a really good episode. I highly implore you to check that out too. Again, Bamboozled. And arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. Sorry, this wasn't more fun.